John speaks for many people, but obviously not everyone, when he writes, "I'm at a total loss to understand why the US election appears to be so close. In a land of 340 plus million people, there is bound to be a certain proportion of knuckle brains, maybe 100,000 at a push. No, it's about 15 to 20% of any given population, John, usually. But 50% of the electorate, ? I just don't get it. The evidence against Trump is prima facie and in a full spotlight. Then I remember Brexit and appreciate that some people refuse to see clear evidence." Well, I think of Brexit occasionally. And it's important to remember that people were made unkeepable promises. I know Trump says stuff about bringing down inflation and getting rid of immigrants, and you and I hear that and think surely nobody A, believes it, and B, thinks that these are things he can achieve. He's getting rid of non-existent immigrants when it comes to the ones that are eating the dogs. So I'm with John. That sense of utter befuddlement is as profound. It's more today than ever because of what he describes as prima facie evidence. It's because you know that if Trump loses tomorrow's election, there is a very real chance that he will claim that he has not lost. 1 in 10 Americans, according to one report this morning, think that civil war could be on the horizon. But he will lie. He will lie about the election result. He will claim that he lost. Have a little listen to one of the things that he said at his latest rally in Pennsylvania with regard to, and he's clearly talking about Fox News in this clip, but he's already seeding the ground for claims of a stolen election. And that's, I think, where John comes from with his utter inability to understand how this can be happening, because he's shown you what he does when he loses elections. And, I mean, it's not just shocking that he is poised to do exactly the same thing again. One thinks of Maya Angelou, doesn't one? And she said, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. Has it ever been more powerful and more impotent? Simultaneously, that observation from the great poet. When people show you who they are, believe them the first time. He's someone that will lie about elections and try to steal power. No, he's not. Prove it. All right, that's what he did last time. Just have a little listen to this and see if you can spot what I spotted.
Oh, if you even mention the fact that there's cheating in elections, they turn you off. I mean, this is supposed to be one of our very brave networks. I won't mention which, but you can imagine. It's one thing when CNN and MSNBC, they're crooked as hell.
So, I mean, the last time Fox reported on Donald Trump's claims that he had lost, an election stolen from him, they ended up settling with the company that made the voting systems for just a cool $787 million. So this is the bit that you can't get your head around, isn't it? He has shown you what he does when he loses. Fox settled that defamation case for $787.5 million, and he is complaining that Fox is not doing what it did last time, when what it did last time saw it hit with a bill for $787 million. It's absolutely extraordinary. So you sit here and you see a man who talks in the vilest terms, but you think back to the impression he did of the disabled journalist or the abuse that he heaped upon the families of the Gold Star military veteran, the man that had died in the service of his country, received a Gold Star, the highest honour that a fallen veteran can receive. And Donald Trump insulted his parents. The impenetrability of this collection of facts is what John in Reading is alluding to. I'm less shocked than I used to be by the amount of people that are comfortable with it. The idea that I really like this. And I think we were probably very slow on the uptake of this. I don't want to call it a kind of excessive generosity of spirit, but the reluctance to believe that people like evil is part of the reason why evil triumphs. Here is someone offering to be horrible to women. Here is someone offering to be incredibly racist, to deport people, to use the army on your own citizens. And I find it impossible to imagine anybody not being spooked by that. I find it impossible not to imagine anybody looking at Donald Trump and not being disgusted. Because he is disgusting. He is objectively disgusting. Everybody knows that. You know, younger generations are finding on TikTok that recording of him explaining how he routinely sexually assaults women. And they are expressing shock that their parents and their grandparents passed long ago. The idea that that would somehow puncture the balloon. I don't think there have ever been any truer words spoken in the history of politics in the English-speaking world than when Donald Trump said he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose a single vote. And that is where I'm bringing you back to today as we prepare for the latest attempt by Donald Trump to get into the White House, and we prepare also for the possibility that in the event of him losing, he will try to unleash hell again in the hope of stealing power. So what I think many experts fear or expect would be the idea that as soon as he enjoys a lead, they will declare victory. This is when he lost the plot with Fox last time, because Fox declared victory for Joe Biden. So, and then he wants them to stop counting the votes once he's achieved it. I mean, this is the bit, again, where I turn into Groundhog Day. He says it all out loud. This is what is so impenetrable. It's all there. Here is a man who tries to steal elections. Here is a man who demands that they stop counting votes when he thinks that enough votes have been counted to deliver him a victory. Here is a man who encourages his supporters to spill blood in the pursuit of stealing him power. So even now, after all these years, the journalistic class or the journalist class is almost entirely ill-equipped to converse about this. Even journalists I like and respect will say things like, well, of course, Kamala Harris isn't perfect. In balance, I mean, it's true to say Kamala Harris isn't perfect, goodness knows. But in the context of what Donald Trump is, Kamala Harris's flaws are largely irrelevant, entirely irrelevant. In the context of abject depravity, the notion of fallibility is meaningless. And yet here we are again. And you hear those little things that just reassure you that you're not the one going mad. He's complaining that Fox won't repeat his lies. And the last time Fox repeated his lies, they got fined $787 million. So I think we're back to the very first question we asked about him, which is, if he shot someone on Fifth Avenue, why wouldn't he lose a single vote? 0345 6060 973. Because when he said it, you thought, what did you think? Yeah, well, come on. I mean, we're not like automata. We're not complete. There might be a few idiots out there who love the racism so much that they'll forgive him anything. There might be a few idiots out there who love whatever it is he sells so much that they'll forgive him anything. But when you have seen the incontrovertible evidence of his corruption, up to and including a kind of incitement almost to murder, his own vice president, the idea that we're still sitting here having conversations about it. And I'll have a look in a minute because everyone likes Idiot's Corner. There'll be people in this country, quite a lot of people. Didn't Honest Bob Jenrick come out and say that he wanted Donald Trump? Liz Truss has said that she wants. Be afraid. Be very afraid. You want to sound like a film poster, because you can't be anything other than repulsed by his depravity unless you are attracted by it. There's no hinterland, is there? You are either repulsed by lies, theft, sexual assault, rape, criminality, or you're attracted by it. People like Liz Truss, Honest Bob Jenrick, you have to presume, Boris Johnson, you have to presume they are attracted by the multiple felonies, by the adjudicated rape, by the self-confessed serial sexual assaults, by the abuse of military veterans' families, brackets, if they're Muslim, close brackets, by the lies about immigrants. You're either repulsed by it or attracted by it. You can't really be ambivalent. And yet journalists, of course, have to pretend or have to aspire to ambivalence. They have to aspire to both sides. They have to aspire to balance. So if Donald Trump did shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, much of the American media would in the same bulletin report that Kamala Harris once got a parking ticket in Delaware. That's the maddest thing from doing what I do for a living and watching other people doing it, it's extraordinary to see that attempt at balance. It makes that story I've told you a billion times about having to ask Andrea Leadsom what she thought about the World Trade Organization after the former Director General of the World Trade Organization had told me what he thought was going on. I mean, the madness of thinking that you have to balance out an expert with an idiot. But in the context of Trump, if he did shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, I swear to you, I'm not even exaggerating, CNN and the rest of them would be carrying a story about Donald Trump shooting someone on Fifth Avenue and Kamala Harris getting a speeding ticket in Delaware, as if the two were somehow interchangeable or as if the two were somehow yin and yang. So we're still where we were at the very beginning. How come he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose a single vote? 0345 6060 973. Whereas if Kamala Harris were to have one bad interview or one bad debate, an awful lot of the people who support her would hemorrhage, not to Trump, but to this sort of middle ground, this hinterland. It's extraordinary. And I think, I mean, what is it? Power? Is there something ties in with the conversation we had in the royal family, about the royal family in the first hour of the programme? What does it speak to? Because you're either feeling it and sending me texts telling me you can't wait until you can drink my liberal tears or something, which is great. Everyone needs a hobby. So you either feel it or you will never feel it. But what is it that they feel? I understand self-interest. I understand why J.D. Vance has gone from calling him America's Hitler to being his vice presidential running mate. That is pure, naked ambition and greed. I understand why people like Elon Musk like him, because people like Elon Musk are never going to be happy. They sadly labour under the illusion that if they could just be a tiny little bit richer, a tiny little bit more powerful, then suddenly they'd be happy. And they think Donald Trump will help them get richer, help them get more powerful. They're probably right. So I get that. But an ordinary person? I quite a few of you cross with me for underestimating the racism. Lee says, only a few racists, James. Seriously? They had a civil war to keep slavery only a few generations ago. The USA is massively and proudly racist. And it probably does come close to boiling down to that. It also explains why support for him in this country is much, much smaller and disproportionately high among Reform Party supporters and Reform Party voters. That the idea of racism as being a political force is probably something we're a little bit too highfalutin about. I feel like we're sort of getting our hands dirty if we start talking about it. But Trump, is it that? Can it really be that simple? That all he does is tell people that it's okay to be racist? And that's such a massive ticket that they'll forgive anything and everything else? Because even that is mealy-mouthed, right? Because it can't be that. It's not that, I love the fact he lets me be racist again, therefore I'll forgive him all the rape stuff. I don't think it is. I think that the power is. It's interesting how the gender divide is breaking down now, if the polling is correct, and women are turning away from him in their droves. But why? Nothing's changed. You heard that tape the first time round. You know exactly what he is, exactly how he thinks of women. Do some women like to be thought of like that? I can get my head around the idea of men who would like to behave like Donald Trump behaves. We heard about a few of them in the last hour of the programme, didn't we? But just that impenetrability of it. And the more you think about it, the more you wax lyrical about it, the more you wang on about it, the more shocking it is to come back to that simple observation about Fifth Avenue. What did he know that we didn't understand? There's the question for you. 20 minutes in, it's a new record. 0345 6060 973. When Donald Trump said, very early on in his political career, that he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose a single vote, what did he understand that I didn't? I was going to say that you didn't, but in order to ring me, perhaps you did. I'll say we, or I'll say so many of us. I sound like him now. I'm doing the weave. So when Donald Trump said that he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, in other words, he could publicly commit an epic crime and not lose a single scintilla of support. What did he understand that we didn't? because I am so embarrassed to admit that I still don't understand. What did he get then in that moment that's still true now and which I still don't understand?